You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Commissioner Jimenez from the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. People with disabilities are more likely to experience violence at the hands of an intimate partner. New Yorkers with disabilities should not feel alone. Support is available. In New York City, all victims of domestic violence, regardless of their language, immigration status, or disabilities, are offered services to help them regain control over their lives. If you or someone you know is being abused, please call 311 for help.
Hi, this is Dr. Tom Farley, New York City's Health Commissioner. One thing that all New Yorkers can do for their health is to know their HIV status. If you've had sex even once, you should get tested for HIV. If you're HIV positive, you can get medical care to help you feel better and live longer. If you're HIV negative, you can stay that way. Your regular healthcare provider can give you an HIV test. Free HIV tests are also available at health department clinics in all 5 boroughs. For clinic locations and hours, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Bailon. Having an official ID is one of the keys to success. Want to open a bank account? Apply for a job? Register for college soon? You'll need an official ID to do any of these things. Don't drive? Don't worry. You can get a non-driver state ID, and it only costs about $10. But in order to get an ID, there are a few things you'll need, and we're here to help. Go to nyc.gov and click on or search ID to get started.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Hola, me llamo Ana y trabajo en el Departamento de Asuntos al Consumidor. A veces puede ser abrumador para administrar su dinero, pero los centros de poder financieros de la ciudad pueden ayudarle a tomar control brindándole asesoramiento financiero profesional, gratuito e individual, ofrecido en toda la ciudad en diferentes idiomas. Nuestros consejeros pueden ayudar a reducir su deuda, preparar un presupuesto, abrir una cuenta bancaria segura y mucho más. Visite nyc.gov para encontrar el centro más cercano o llame al 311 para pedir una cita ya.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. A fire hydrant is a familiar sight in the city. There are more than 109,000 of them citywide. Summer in New York can be hot, but please don't open fire hydrants to cool off unless you have an approved spray cap. Illegally open hydrants can reduce the water pressure needed to fight fires and endanger people's lives. Instead, get a spray cap at your local firehouse or take advantage of the city's recreation centers, play streets, pools, and cooling centers. For more information on locations, call 311.
I'm Fatima Sharma, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. New York City is home to people from more than 190 countries. They're our neighbors and co-workers and an essential part of the fabric that makes us the greatest city in the world. My office helps immigrants make New York City their home. In the wake of Hurricane Sandy, we continue to work to make sure that immigrant communities affected by the storm have access to services that will help them recover and rebuild their lives. To learn more, visit nyc.gov or contact 311.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Allison Tachi, President of City Parks Foundation. This month, we're asking you to give back to your neighborhood parks and playgrounds on It's My Park Day. Hosted by Partnerships for Parks, It's My Park Day is a public-private partnership that brings together thousands of New Yorkers to rake, plant, clean, and paint in parks across the city. Events begin on May 4th and continue throughout the month. Visit nyc.gov to find out how you can get involved in It's My Park Day and other volunteer activities all year long.
Brooklyn Bridge Park keeps getting better. Hi, I'm Regina Meyer, president of Brooklyn Bridge Park, and we're thrilled to welcome visitors to the brand new Pier 5. Come play on our 5-acre sports field, barbecue on grills at the Picnic Peninsula, or take in the breathtaking views of Lower Manhattan from the Promenade. There's more to come later this year when the Pier 2 sports courts make their debut. Check out brooklynbridgepark.org or call 311 for further information. Can't wait to see you at the park.
Hola, yo soy Adrienne Bailón. Tener una identificación oficial puede ser clave para tu éxito. ¿Quieres abrir una cuenta bancaria? ¿Solicitar un trabajo? Vas a necesitar una identificación oficial para hacer cualquiera de estas cosas. Puedes conseguir una identificación estatal para no conductores y solo cuesta $10. Pero para conseguir una identificación hay unas cosas que vas a necesitar. Visite nyc.gov y busque ID para empezar.
I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of Small Business Services.
And I'm Terrence Holliday, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. Our veterans served our country, and we are proud to serve them.
If you're a veteran or a veteran spouse looking for a job, stop by the Workforce One Veterans Center at 60 Madison Avenue in Manhattan, or at any of the 15 centers in all 5 boroughs. We work with businesses committed to hiring veterans, which means we have jobs for you. For more information, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Home is the one place we all expect to be safe, but each day over 1,000 New Yorkers report an incident of domestic violence. Hello, I'm Commissioner Yolanda Jimenez of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. Victims and their children don't have to suffer in silence. If you or someone you know is a victim of family violence, help is available 24 hours a day in all languages by calling 311 and asking for the New York City Domestic Violence Hotline. In emergencies, call 911.
Hello, I'm Taxi and Limousine Commissioner David Yaski. Did you know that New York City taxicabs are required by law to take passengers anywhere in the 5 boroughs, or to Westchester or Nassau County, or to Newark Airport? In fact, a driver can't even ask where you're going before they accept the trip. So if a taxi driver refuses to serve you, call 311 or visit nyc.gov with the license or medallion number. With your help, the TLC is here to make sure you get where you need to go.
Hi, I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of the Department of Small Business Services. Figuring out what permits and licenses are needed in order to start and expand a business in New York City can be a challenging task. That's why we created New York City Business Express. It's a free one-stop website where business owners can access the information they need to open up shop. You can apply online for many permits, settle outstanding fines, and find incentives to lower the cost of doing business. Visit nyc.gov or call 311 and ask for NYC Business Express.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Soy Iris Jiménez Hernández, vicepresidenta de HHC, su sistema de hospitales públicos. Este Día de las Madres, dele a su mamá el mejor regalo, una cita para una mamografía. En HHC ofrecemos mamografías a muy bajo costo o sin costo durante todo el año. Visite nuestro sitio web o marque el 311 para el hospital público más cercano.
Hi, this is New York City Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sadekhan. For most New Yorkers, our 6,000 miles of streets are our front yards, so we're doing everything we can to make them as safe, attractive, and as sustainable as they can be. By keeping our roads and bridges in good repair, building new public plazas and bike lanes, we're creating world-class streets for a world-class city. Please help us keep our streets safe and smooth by calling 311 to report potholes and other traffic concerns in your neighborhood.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Every day, 9 million New Yorkers rely on DEP to deliver 1 billion gallons of the world's best drinking water to their homes and businesses. Renowned for its purity and taste, our tap water comes by gravity from the Catskills, 125 miles away, making it the right choice for your health and the environment. Look for our New York City Water on the Go fountains throughout the 5 boroughs and learn more about New York City's water supply at nyc.gov. New York City Water, the right choice for the environment, your health, and your wallet. This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Our restaurant scene is one of the best in the world, serving millions of New Yorkers and tourists every year. If you run a restaurant or food service business, remember to properly empty your grease traps. Pouring grease down the drain or into a city catch basin is illegal and can cause significant costly sewer backups. For a description of grease regulations and information regarding proper disposal methods, visit nyc.gov.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
what better way to get some outdoor exercise than rolling up your sleeves and helping care for Brooklyn's Prospect Park? Hi, I'm Emily Lloyd, president of the Prospect Park Alliance. Volunteering at Prospect Park offers many exciting ways to make a difference in the lives of all who benefit from the park. Individuals, families, students, and retirees can all have fun and learn something while helping the park. We provide the training and equipment. You decide how much time you can spare. For more information, call 311 or go online to nyc.gov, and I hope I'll see you soon in beautiful Prospect Park.
Hi, this is Sanitation Commissioner John Doherty. Please use street litter baskets for your candy wrappers, fast food containers, empty coffee cups, for everything except recyclables. Remember, never use litter baskets for garbage from your home or business. That's not what they are there for. Above all, don't litter. For more information on how you can help keep New York City clean, call 311. Let's work together to keep our streets clean.
Hi, this is Vincent Schiraldi, Commissioner at the New York City Department of Probation. Did you know that state law prohibits unfair discrimination against job applicants with a criminal conviction? Did you also know that the city has taken special steps to ensure that job applicants with a criminal conviction are treated fairly? It's true. For example, there are many job postings where city agencies are prohibited from asking about an applicant's criminal history before or during the first interview. So don't let your past define your future. Consider applying for a job with the city or one of our hundreds of partners. To find out more about what this change in policy means for you, visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of Small Business Services. If your small business was impacted by Hurricane Sandy, the city is ready to help. We have an emergency loan providing up to $25,000. We can also help businesses apply for federal assistance to up to $2 million. And there are other ways we can help. If your business has been displaced, we can set up free temporary space. And we could also assist in answering insurance questions or replace permits lost during the storm. For more information, go to nyc.gov, call 311, or visit a business solutions center located in any of the 5 boroughs.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Hi, I'm Seth Diamond, Commissioner of New York City's Department of Homeless Services. Homeless Services can connect you or someone you know who is at risk of homelessness to the DHS Home-Based Program, our one-stop for homelessness prevention, or one of our free law offices. We have over 30 service centers located in the 5 boroughs. To learn more about community-based prevention services that can help New Yorkers prevent eviction and avoid shelter, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Deputy Mayor Carol Robles-Roman. New York City is the safest big city in the nation, and we're leading a fight against human trafficking, a terrible crime where people can be forced or tricked into working in harsh conditions, often for no pay. If you are a victim or know someone who is, call 911. For more information, call 311 or go to www.nyc.gov. Let's call an end to human trafficking.
This is Sanitation Commissioner John Doherty, reminding you to leash and pick up after your dog. Be considerate to your fellow New Yorkers when walking your dog in the street or in a park. Obey the Pooper Scooper law and avoid a $250 fine. If we all do our part, we can keep New York City clean. Remember, be a responsible pet owner and always pick up after your dog.
I'm Kate Levin, Commissioner of the Department of Cultural Affairs. New York City is the creative capital of the world. Throughout the 5 boroughs, residents and visitors benefit from an extraordinary cultural community that includes more than 700 theater and dance companies, 650 galleries and museums, 96 orchestras, 24 performing arts centers, 5 zoos, 4 botanic gardens, and 1 aquarium. So take in an exhibition, see a performance, or visit a historic site. There's something for everyone, and it's all just around the corner.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Commissioner Jimenez from the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. People with disabilities are more likely to experience violence at the hands of an intimate partner. New Yorkers with disabilities should not feel alone. Support is available. In New York City, all victims of domestic violence, regardless of their language, immigration status, or disabilities, are offered services to help them regain control over their lives. If you or someone you know is being abused, please call 311 for help.
Hi, this is Dr. Tom Farley, New York City's Health Commissioner. One thing that all New Yorkers can do for their health is to know their HIV status. If you've had sex, even once, you should get tested for HIV. If you're HIV positive, you can get medical care to help you feel better and live longer. If you're HIV negative, you can stay that way. Your regular healthcare provider can give you an HIV test. Free HIV tests are also available at health department clinics in all 5 boroughs. For clinic locations and hours, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Bailone. Having an official ID is one of the keys to success. Want to open a bank account, apply for a job, register for college soon? You'll need an official ID to do any of these things. Don't drive? Don't worry. You can get a non-driver state ID and it only costs about $10. But in order to get an ID, there are a few things you'll need, and we're here to help. Go to nyc.gov and click on or search ID to get started.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Hola, me llamo Ana y trabajo en el Departamento de Asuntos al Consumidor. A veces puede ser abrumador para administrar su dinero, pero los centros de poder financieros de la ciudad pueden ayudarle a tomar control brindándole asesoramiento financiero profesional, gratuito e individual, ofrecido en toda la ciudad en diferentes idiomas. Nuestros consejeros pueden ayudar a reducir su deuda, preparar un presupuesto, abrir una cuenta bancaria segura y mucho más. Visite nyc.gov para encontrar el centro más cercano o llame al 311 para pedir una cita ya.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. A fire hydrant is a familiar sight in the city. There are more than 109,000 of them citywide. Summer in New York can be hot, but please don't open fire hydrants to cool off unless you have an approved spray cap. Illegally open hydrants can reduce the water pressure needed to fight fires and endanger people's lives. Instead, get a spray cap at your local firehouse or take advantage of the city's recreation centers, play streets, pools, and cooling centers. For more information on locations, call 311.
I'm Fatima Sharma, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. New York City is home to people from more than 190 countries. They're our neighbors and co-workers and an essential part of the fabric that makes us the greatest city in the world. My office helps immigrants make New York City their home. In the wake of Hurricane Sandy, we continue to work to make sure that immigrant communities affected by the storm have access to services that will help them recover and rebuild their lives. To learn more, visit nyc.gov or contact 311.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Allison Tachi, President of City Parks Foundation. This month, we're asking you to give back to your neighborhood parks and playgrounds on It's My Park Day. Hosted by Partnerships for Parks, It's My Park Day is a public-private partnership that brings together thousands of New Yorkers to rake, plant, clean, and paint in parks across the city. Events begin on May 4th and continue throughout the month. Visit nyc.gov to find out how you can get involved in It's My Park Day and other volunteer activities all year long.
Brooklyn Bridge Park keeps getting better. Hi, I'm Regina Meyer, President of Brooklyn Bridge Park, and we're thrilled to welcome visitors to the brand new Pier 5. Come play on our 5-acre sports field, barbecue on grills at the Picnic Peninsula, or take in the breathtaking views of Lower Manhattan from the promenade. There's more to come later this year when the Pier 2 sports courts make their debut. Check out brooklynbridgepark.org or call 311 for further information. Can't wait to see you at the park.
Hola, yo soy Adrienne Bailón. Tener una identificación oficial puede ser clave para tu éxito. ¿Quieres abrir una cuenta bancaria? ¿Solicitar un trabajo? Vas a necesitar una identificación oficial para hacer cualquiera de estas cosas. Puedes conseguir una identificación estatal para no conductores y solo cuesta $10. Pero para conseguir una identificación hay unas cosas que vas a necesitar. Visite nyc.gov y busque ID para empezar.
I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of Small Business Services.
And I'm Terrence Holliday, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. Our veterans served our country, and we are proud to serve them.
If you're a veteran or a veteran spouse looking for a job, stop by the Workforce One Veterans Center at 60 Madison Avenue in Manhattan, or at any of the 15 centers in all 5 boroughs. We work with businesses committed to hiring veterans, which means we have jobs for you. For more information, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Home is the one place we all expect to be safe. But each day, over 1,000 New Yorkers report an incident of domestic violence. Hello, I'm Commissioner Yolanda Jimenez of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. Victims and their children don't have to suffer in silence. If you or someone you know is a victim of family violence, help is available 24 hours a day in all languages by calling 311 and asking for the New York City Domestic Violence Hotline. In emergencies, call 911.
Hello, I'm Taxi and Limousine Commissioner David Yaski. Did you know that New York City taxicabs are required by law to take passengers anywhere in the 5 boroughs, or to Westchester or Nassau County, or to Newark Airport? In fact, a driver can't even ask where you're going before they accept the trip. So if a taxi driver refuses to serve you, call 311 or visit nyc.gov with the license or medallion number. With your help, the TLC is here to make sure you get where you need to go.
Hi, I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of the Department of Small Business Services. Figuring out what permits and licenses are needed in order to start and expand a business in New York City can be a challenging task. That's why we created New York City Business Express. It's a free one-stop website where business owners can access the information they need to open up shop. You can apply online for many permits, settle outstanding fines, and find incentives to lower the cost of doing business. Visit nyc.gov or call 311 and ask for NYC Business Express.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Soy Iris Jiménez Hernández, vicepresidenta de HHC, su sistema de hospitales públicos. Este Día de las Madres, dele a su mamá el mejor regalo, una cita para una mamografía. En HHC ofrecemos mamografías a muy bajo costo o sin costo durante todo el año. Visite nuestro sitio web o marque el 311 para el hospital público más cercano.
Hi, this is New York City Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sadekhan. For most New Yorkers, our 6,000 miles of streets are our front yards, so we're doing everything we can to make them as safe, attractive, and as sustainable as they can be. By keeping our roads and bridges in good repair, building new public plazas and bike lanes, we're creating world-class streets for a world-class city. Please help us keep our streets safe and smooth by calling 311 to report potholes and other traffic concerns in your neighborhood.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Every day, 9 million New Yorkers rely on DEP to deliver 1 billion gallons of the world's best drinking water to their homes and businesses. Renowned for its purity and taste, our tap water comes by gravity from the Catskills, 125 miles away, making it the right choice for your health and the environment. Look for our New York City water-on-the-go fountains throughout the 5 boroughs and learn more about New York City's water supply at nyc.gov. New York City Water, the right choice for the environment, your health, and your wallet. This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Our restaurant scene is one of the best in the world, serving millions of New Yorkers and tourists every year. If you run a restaurant or food service business, remember to properly empty your grease traps. Pouring grease down the drain or into a city catch basin is illegal and can cause significant costly sewer backups. For a description of grease regulations and information regarding proper disposal methods, visit nyc.gov.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
What better way to get some outdoor exercise than rolling up your sleeves and helping care for Brooklyn's Prospect Park? Hi, I'm Emily Lloyd, president of the Prospect Park Alliance. Volunteering at Prospect Park offers many exciting ways to make a difference in the lives of all who benefit from the park. Individuals, families, students, and retirees can all have fun and learn something while helping the park. We provide the training and equipment. You decide how much time you can spare. For more information, call 311 or go online to nyc.gov, and I hope I'll see you soon in beautiful Prospect Park.
Hi, this is Sanitation Commissioner John Doherty. Please use street litter baskets for your candy wrappers, fast food containers, empty coffee cups, for everything except recyclables. Remember, never use litter baskets for garbage from your home or business. That's not what they are there for. Above all, don't litter. For more information on how you can help keep New York City clean, call 311. Let's work together to keep our streets clean.
Hi, this is Vincent Schiraldi, Commissioner at the New York City Department of Probation. Did you know that state law prohibits unfair discrimination against job applicants with a criminal conviction? Did you also know that the city has taken special steps to ensure that job applicants with a criminal conviction are treated fairly? It's true. For example, there are many job postings where city agencies are prohibited from asking about an applicant's criminal history before or during the first interview. So don't let your past define your future. Consider
Well, good afternoon. I am joined by four people that you know well. First, Chancellor Merryl Tisch from the New York State Board of Regents, Commissioner John King, Education, New York State, who has done a fantastic job, Shale Polakov-Sharansky, our Chief Academic Officer, and Dennis Walcott. And we're here to discuss the new grades, which when you take a look at them and understand them, I think actually is some very good news, even though people haven't written it that way yet. But I can only attribute that to people not understanding the numbers. Last spring, if you remember, students in the 3rd through 8th grades took standardized tests in math and in English, and there's nothing unusual about that. It's something that's happened every year for many years, but this year the tests themselves were vastly different. And that gives us some difficulties in how we measure whether our kids did improve from last year to this year, but there is another ways we can look at that and measure it. The trouble is that if every year the test changes or every year a definition of what the bar is changes, you just can't compare one year to another. But we do have some ways, as I said, to do that. The tests themselves this year were obviously very different. They measured something much more rigorous than previous tests have, and they tried to measure not whether students are on track to graduate from high school. That is one of the things we want to measure, but also whether they are on track to succeed in college and careers. And the tests set the bar higher in terms of the skill sets they were expected to have mastered, and today we're presenting the results of these tests. Let me just say at the start that I think Merrill and John deserve an enormous amount of credit for raising the standards. There are a couple of other states that did raise standards, but most of the states did not have the courage to do so. This is more necessary than ever before as the standards required to earn a living and to compete in a global technological world keep going up. This is something that we absolutely have to do. Our administration has been behind them 100% of the ways, but I think they deserve the credit for something that is gutsy and necessary, and our children will benefit from that for many years to come. At the outset, before we look at the results, let me just stress 3 points. First, our efforts over the past 3 years to prepare students for the more rigorous work, we think have paid off, and I'm going to show you numbers that support that. You'll be able to see that the facts that our students significantly outperform students in the state's other major urban areas. And we compare ourselves to other urban areas because all urban areas have similar kind of student bodies and problems, pedagogical needs. But we also compare ourselves to the general state schools where, if you remember, in virtually every state, large urban cities do not perform anywhere near as well as the entire state, where the suburbs tend to have students with less pedagogical problems. Second, the results show that we're continuing to close the gap in test scores between students in our city and statewide students, as I've said. And from the outset of this administration, eliminating that gap has been one of the ways for us to measure, because the kids take the same test across the state. It is just nonsensical to compare kids in one city that take one test and kids that take a different test elsewhere. The one variable, or the one consistent test we have to measure ourselves by, is from the city to other parts of the state or the overall state. And if every year we change the test or we change how we measure it, the historical trends are much harder to measure, but you can measure us versus the rest of the state and see how we're doing. If we are closing the gap, then that really says that our kids are doing something spectacular, and we're never going to get them to where we want them to be. I know of no Nobel Prize winner that ever says I'm proficient, that ever stops learning, but it does say that we are doing what the best teacher corps anybody has ever put together set out to do. And third, the results in these new tests based on new standards create a baseline which we will measure our students see if they are prepared for the demands of college and careers going forward. This baseline is a new starting point. It would have been an awful lot easier for everybody to understand the numbers if we had the same test that we started with back in 2002. But thank goodness we didn't have that. We keep raising the bar and changing the tests. It just makes the measurement more difficult. But it certainly does not mean that our students are doing more or less one year to another. If you change the basis, you have to find something else, and that is our comparison to the state. We believe in our students, and we are committed to their future, and that's for the 11 years we've held them to ever higher academic standards. And with the help of the teachers, they've always risen to these new and more difficult standards, and we think they will do again. And we want to show you a little bit of data. Let's look at the tests and the results in more detail. The first slide, which is not up yet. Yep. Here, up to me. Yep. Way to go. I didn't realize you'd give me the authority to do that. Good. How do we... there we go, in the other direction. This slide shows that the tests this year were harder for a simple reason, and that is in college and careers, the bar is ever higher too. In today's global economy, success in the workplace increasingly depends on the ability to think critically, to solve math problems that involve multiple steps, and to analyze written texts and cite evidence from them to support conclusions about them. The days of just learning basic facts of how you will live in an agrarian society. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you add dirt, you add water, and up comes the corn. You take a piece of metal in the industrial world, you put it on the lathe, you follow the instructions, you turn the crank, out comes a piece of something that's useful. In the knowledge world that we're going into, you have to learn to think critically, and that is something very different than going from the agrarian societies to industrial societies. And that's the great challenge, and that's why we have to keep making sure that all the kids across this country, although we're responsible really just for New York, but as Americans we're responsible for the whole country, that these kids learn other things. You need these skills in order to earn a college diploma. And as the income figures in the slide shows, every step up the ladder of educational success is a step towards a more rewarding career. I think the trend here is really worrisome for those kids who drop out of school and who never get a diploma. Their options are getting less. I was talking to the owner, the CEO of a major fast food company, and he was talking about how the workers in his company are changing. People that are providing the food service and delivering fast food to people, becoming more and more elderly, educated people who want to go back to work. Either they need the money or they want something to do. And that makes it even harder for young kids that don't have at least a high school diploma to get a job. Their careers are really in jeopardy. The next slide shows that these tests that we're aligned with the Common Core standards. have been developed by state-level education leaders from around the nation and that are supported by the Obama administration. At this point, they've been voluntarily adopted by 45 states, including New York and the District of Columbia. New York was an earlier adopter of the standards and was the second state in the U.S. to give Common Core aligned tests, and our administration helped lead this charge for Common Core standards. And the reason that is keeping our class standards low wouldn't do our students any favor. Instead, it would just set them up for more frustration and failure later in life. Now, other states have started to make the transition to these new assessments, and as you can see from these slides, these states also have seen big differences between the proficiency rates before and the proficiency rates on the newer exams. Massachusetts did go through something similar back in the 1990s when they, to their credit, toughened their assessments. Scores dropped initially, but that is a drop that you can't compare. It was an apples and oranges drop. Today, students in that state, I will say, favorably compare with students from Shanghai and Singapore on international assessments. So it shows by making the standards more rigorous in Massachusetts, they may have had the same problem that we do of you have to recalibrate everything and start from a different base point, but it was good in the context of where they could compare their students to students around the world. We're going to help our children succeed. We've got to have the kind of information knowing how well they're doing. And as you can see, some of these dropped 60, 70, 60, 50%. But that doesn't mean the kids did any worse. It's simply a different measure. Those kids did not do any worse at all. It's almost like saying you have a batter in the minor leagues who bats 500, you move him to the major leagues, he bats 250. That is not necessarily a worse baseball player. It's a very different ways to measure a very different ball field that they're playing in, and we have to make sure that we give our kids constantly the opportunity to move towards the major leagues. The next slide, this shows the kind of questions. I won't embarrass the press by asking you to pass these tests, but these are the tests that our kids are taking in English and math, and it's the kind of things that they have to know to compete in the workplace. It shows simple sample math and English questions from old state tests for fourth graders and the new ones, and you'll see that they are very much different. On this year's math test, students had to solve more text-based problems that entail multiple steps rather than simple calculations. I've always been reminded that in elementary school we had two kinds of problems at the end of each chapter in the math book. One was where they had the number 8, the number 7, they had a plus sign, line, equal sign, and you had to figure out what 8 plus 7 was. Anybody here want to do it? I'll do it for you. It's 15, just in case you couldn't. And then there was another set of problems. Johnny had 8 and Sally had 7. How many did they have together? And we never did those. Those are what we call the word problems. But that is the real world. You have to be able to do that. That's where you apply mathematics, which is arguably the most spoken language in the history of the world. It's the one common language we all have all around the world is mathematics. And you have to be able to do that if you're going to get a job and compete. Next slide is, this shows comparing us to NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Since it's really not valid to compare performance in this year's test to last year's test, since they were so different tests, one of the ways we've looked at to see is how have we done comparing our kids to the NAEP test, because the NAEP test was given back in 2003 and in 2011. And what we do know is today we are essentially, it's hard to see that, but we're essentially at the NAEP level scores for this national test. It's a challenging test that, like the state test given earlier this spring, is meant to accurately gauge college and career readiness. And the charts on this slide show that in our city's public schools, progress on NAEP tests and scores since 2003 has been largely consistent with the results on the new Common Core test. So without question, proficiency levels are still far too low, but we've clearly moved in the right direction. And as school's Chancellor, Dennis Walcott, will describe in a few minutes, we're making investments that we think will help us build on these gains and help students do even better in the future. Now, As I said at the beginning of my remarks, the most telling comparison, of the only one that really is a good measure of are our students doing better or worse, is one that demonstrates how effectively we're helping students develop the skills that they need to succeed in colleges and careers, but it's comparing us to other students who take exactly the same tests. And as you can see here, there really is no comparison between how well we've done and how much other big cities in the state have done. Remember, all of the kids are taking the same test. So the city is almost caught up to the state. I'll show you the progress that we've made to get there. It's an amazing number. Unfortunately, and sadly for all of us, because these other cities are part of America, part of New York State, they're our fellow citizens, and their kids are going to vote in the same elections our kids are going to vote in, and share in the success or lack of success in this country. But the other big cities are dismally down compared to what we've done, and the same thing is true in both math and English. Despite the higher social and economic barriers our students typically must overcome, we've also continued to close the gap between the kids that are in the suburbs, where pedagogical problems traditionally have been less, and you see that on this. Now, this is, I think, the answer to your question is how well have our kids done this year versus last year, because we have to have a common ways of measuring it. They have to have the same stuff last year as this year, and they have to have the same tests between our kids and some other group of kids that we can compare. And if you'll see, even last year, we were almost 5 points behind the state, and we're down to 1.4 in math right now, and a similar decline, 8.9 to 4.7 in English. So it does show that we are our teachers are doing a spectacular job. No other big city, I don't think, remotely comes close to the state averages that they're in, because the state averages typically have many wealthy communities with a lot of other kids in them. The gap is, we still have a long ways to go, I think it's fair to say, but this number, this is a question of comparing one year to another and all kids that take the same test. Whereas the test scores that everybody looked at in the papers today was comparing apples to oranges. It's almost like Mary has 5 apples and Johnny has 4 oranges, and how many oranges does Johnny have? The answer is nothing. I mean, you can't compare the two things, but this is ways that you can compare. In a few minutes, Dennis will go through the test results in detail and describe the tests that we are taking, the steps we're taking. First, I want to point out that the 2 people from the state behind me, Merryl, Tisch, and John King, as I said at the beginning, deserve an enormous amount of credit. We have made huge strides in closing the achievement gap between students in our city and students in the rest of the state, and that's happened because of our close partnership with the state educational leaders. I completely endorse and embrace the Common Core standards. I think it's exactly what we need. Standards are supported by President Obama and Education Secretary Arne Duncan. But unfortunately, they are at the moment being fought, as you know, by some right-wing groups that oppose reforms to our nation's school systems. We're not going to listen to that. We're going to do what's right in the state. So let me first introduce the Chancellor, Merryl Tisch. Merryl?
Thank you, Mike, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner King and I have taken an unusual step, one which we haven't really done, is to join the city today for the sharing of this data. It's a very significant set of data points. As you know, it embarks upon a new standard, but I wanted to take this opportunity, really, before our educators go through the detailed information, to thank the mayor for his courage and his leadership over this last dozen years. New York City has set a bar for challenge and moving into challenge and embracing challenge. And as my friend, the mayor, said to me as we were walking in, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and do the right thing, even though sometimes the numbers and the results that you report bring about a whole new set of questions. This is a courageous moment in the history of the state, in the history of the city. I want to thank the leadership in the city for standing with us in this really very significant challenge. Commissioner?
Thank you, Chancellor. I just want to make a couple of quick points. One is I want to recognize and express gratitude for the leadership that Mayor Bloomberg, Chancellor Walcott, and Deputy Chancellor Saransky have shown around the Common Core. From the earliest discussions in New York about adoption of the Common Core, through its adoption, through the work over the last 3 years to prepare students and teachers for the Common Core, New York City has been a real leader in that work and a real partner in that work. Second point I wanted to emphasize is, once again, to reiterate the point that the Chancellor made and the Mayor made, this is a new baseline. And people may make the mistake of trying to use these results to criticize our school districts or principals or teachers. That would be a mistake. These results represent a new baseline, a new starting point for improvement going forward so that we can ensure all of our students are college and career ready and ready to compete in the 21st century. The final point is what matters most today is where we go next, the work ahead. And Mayor Bloomberg, Chancellor Walcott, Deputy Chancellor Saransky have been working to support teachers in the work of teaching to the Common Core, and that work continues. It's not quick work. It doesn't happen overnight, but they are investing important resources in supporting their teachers, and we expect students will benefit from that support, and we look forward to continued progress throughout the state as we move forward from this baseline. Thank you.
Well, John, thank you. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me thank the Chancellor and the Commissioner, and especially the Mayor, for their leadership. Back in 2006, the Mayor wrote an op-ed piece calling for higher and tougher standards, and back in 2009, the Mayor and I and others traveled down to Washington, D.C., where the Mayor gave a very strong speech around standards and Common Core and the need for not just New York State, but for all states to adopt Common Core. And as a result of the great leadership of my colleague, the Chancellor, and definitely the Commissioner and Shale, and especially the Mayor, we're at this pivotal point in history right now. And so I just want to say again, thank you, and I share the Mayor's confidence in our students and educators because we have done this before. And beginning in 2006, when the new 3rd through 8th grade exams were introduced, student performance on state exams rose steadily. After the state raised the bar on those exams in 2010, student performance again rose steadily from 2010 to 2012. Young people are responsive to expectation, whether those expectations are extremely high or extremely low. And the group who is surrounding me here today set that bar extremely high. We believe in setting high expectations for our students because this is what will prepare them for college and careers and to be competitive in the 21st century. In the past, we've always talked about high school graduation and high school graduation as the be-all to end-all. And thanks to the Mayor, thanks to the Chancellor, thanks to the Commissioner, our language started to change several years ago, and we started talking about college and career readiness. And as a result of the city and the work of Shale, and as a result of the Commissioner and the Chancellor, we started to redefine that as well. And those are the new high expectations that we set. We believe deeply in our students, and with support from their teachers, we are confident that students will rise to the challenge and meet this new higher standard again. If you look at the results across grade levels, you'll see data that are consistent across the country in terms of elementary school performance exceeding middle school performance. We see the same pattern here in New York City. We are pursuing aggressive reform at the middle school level to attack this problem. We started the Middle School Quality Initiative in 2011 with 18 schools, and this year we expanded it to include an additional number of schools. In total, 89 schools, nearly a quarter of our middle schools will participate in this initiative this fall. The initiative is an intensive literacy program to ensure students are prepared for the challenging work ahead as this strategy takes hold and expands. We expect to see solid improvement here. The next slide We believe that all families deserve high-quality choices and options to choose from, and we will continue supporting the growing charter sector in our city. We have been one of the major leaders in the country in making sure that New York City is charter-friendly. And the most appropriate comparison is how charter schools perform relative to schools serving similar students. Many of our charter schools are located in the poorest communities. The results show that the vast number of them, 79%, outperform their peer schools in math, and the average charter school proficiency was 11.4 points higher than similar schools in math and 3.7 points higher in English language arts. And on math, charters are outperforming all New York City schools. Charters provide strong options for families often in high-need communities. In our highest need districts, charters show particularly strong performance in many districts. Charters achieve proficiency of more than 10 points above the district average. Next slide shows you in math, you can see that students in New York City from different demographic groups perform similarly to their peers from across the state. So you'll see the comparisons of our students from New York City to New York State, Asian students, black students, Hispanic students, and white students in math. And then also if you take a look at English language learners, former English language learner students, and students with disabilities, you'll see favorable comparisons to the rest of the state. Across the city, 15.3% of the black students met the proficiency standards in math, a rate higher than the proficiency of all students in the next 4 largest cities in New York State. Hispanic students similarly outperformed all students in the next 4 largest cities, with 18.6% of the students meeting proficiency standards in math compared to 18.4% statewide. Across all demographic groups, New York City students outperformed their peers in New York State. While our performance relative to the rest of New York State is strong, the achievement gap persists and is totally unacceptable. We have consistently narrowed this gap and are confident that our students will continue to do so over time. As I indicated before, our students respond to expect to see the students respond the same way moving forward. In New York City, we have launched targeted intervention like the Mayor's Young Men Initiative to drive improved results for Black and Latino males focused on improving academics, school culture, and youth development practice. In a few slides, I will address the comprehensive support we are providing for teachers and students, especially students who are struggling. The next slide deals with our English language arts, and results in English are similar, though obviously there is a great need to support students with disabilities and English language learners more effectively across the state and here in New York City. Again, our performance in English is stronger than the other cities in New York State. Across the city, the percent of proficient black students in English was 16.3% compared to 5.7% in large New York State cities, and Hispanic students' proficiency was 16.6% higher than the proficiency for all the students in any of the Big Four districts, and well above the New York State large city average of 8.3%. In addressing the needs of students with disabilities, continuing the special education reform and not backing away from it is extremely important. And that is one way we can work towards better outcome for these students. We know that when students learn alongside their peers, they make gains. We have seen this from early data from our reform, and we continue to see students move from the most restrictive environments to the least restrictive environments. A solid policy. We can get there, but this work is hard and requires deep, sustained commitment. Change does not happen overnight. I'm sure that families are interested in finding out their child's score, and individual student data will be available online starting August the 26th. Over 1,100,000 students took this test in New York City. Families are encouraged to log on to arisparentlink.org to find their child's score and learn more information about the new Common Core standards and the changing state tests. Families that need help logging on can get help through arisparentlink.org, calling their child's school, or by attending a Log On and Learn Week event. During the week of August 26th, Department of Education officials will be stationed in different boroughs each day to help families access their child's results and learn more about what is changing in classrooms across the city. In addition, helpful resources are available for families, including a video explaining the changes, a set of tips for parents on talking with their child of the results, and an FAQ, frequently asked questions, as well for our families. To access these materials, go to newyorkcity.gov and search for Common Core Parent Resources or call 311 and they will direct you in the right direction. Because the tests are new, we want to ensure that no one is penalized, and this is also being done by the state as well, by this change. We have been very clear about this since spring. No promotion decisions will be changed based on the test results. Students who earn the highest scores, even if those scores are lower than in past years, will still have access to screen, middle, and high schools. These results will not be used to evaluate teachers this year. There will not be an increase in elementary and middle schools receiving D and F grades on the school progress reports. At the state level, no new priority schools or focus districts will be put in place or identified. After all this, the change is intended to lead to more accurate, fuller understanding of where the students are on the path to college and career readiness, and not to punish anyone. During the school year, along with the Chancellor and along with the Commissioner, Cheryl, and the Mayor, we have visited a number of schools, and on average I've visited basically a school every day. And I've been blown away by the outstanding work of our teachers and our staff and the principals' commitment to this work. The Common Core requires a bigger shift for some of our teachers than others, and it is hard work to significantly change what you have been doing day in, day out for years. But I see it taking place, and a number of you in the press have been with us to see how teaching has dramatically changed over the last several years. Research shows it takes 3 to 6 years to make meaningful change to teacher practice, and so the Department of Education, working with our state partners, is trying to be as helpful as possible in supporting these schools making these necessary changes. Last year, we offered more than 2,700 trainings on how to better support struggling students. That is more than 11 trainings a day the entire year. This year, the Department of Education is doubling down on teachers literally and investing more than $100 million in teacher development. We have increased the funding dedicated to support Level 1 students by $10 million. By the start of the school year, more than 1 million books will be delivered to schools, books that have higher level vocabulary words and are more appropriate for each grade level. In math, teachers are preparing to focus more deeply on fewer topics, a lesson we've learned from countries around the world that are outperforming us. And each day this summer, we've been training hundreds of teachers, 15,000 by the end of this summer, on new Common Core aligned curriculum. All schools are expected to have Common Core aligned curriculum in place by 2013-2014. In closing, I want to share a message to our students, to our teachers and our principals and families, and all New Yorkers. To students, today's scores are just a starting point, as the Mayor indicated. It is a new baseline of measurement. Your teachers and your city are behind you. These changes are meant to help you learn more and have more successful futures, and we know you can reach this higher bar. It's to prepare you for college and career success. To teachers, I want to thank you. You have the most challenging and meaningful job there is, and I know today's results may be unsettling, but you have been doing a fantastic job. You have been working hard day in, day out on behalf of our 1.1 million students, and we want to say thank you for all of your great work. You are trailblazers in this country's transition to Common Core standards, and I'm continually impressed by your commitment to strengthening instruction and better serving all of our students. The Common Core is a step forward towards building a strong and better education system, making sure we have more equal opportunity for our students, and you are at the front lines of that work. To families, I encourage you to learn more about Common Core and changing state tests, to discuss these changes with your child. Today's results are a new baseline. Your child's teachers and principal are working hard to prepare your child to succeed at this higher level. Change takes time, but I am absolutely convinced We will definitely get there. To all New Yorkers, I ask you to stand by your schools. The city's future rests on our educational system. And while this change may cause short-term challenges, we're here for the long run. In the long run, not on behalf of the adults, but we're here on behalf of our 1.1 million students. So, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for your leadership. Back to you.
Dennis, thank you. Before taking questions, let me summarize today's announcement for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. Estamos anunciando los resultados de exámenes estatales de inglés y matemáticas que tomaron nuestros estudiantes de tercer a octavo grado la primera vez. Primavera pasada. Estos exámenes fueron más difíciles, pero nos dan una mejor descripción de lo que tenemos que hacer para prepararlos para el éxito en un futuro. And with that, we'll be happy to take some questions. Please just identify who you are. Yes, Miss.
Dana Arching, News 12. Do you have any specific borough breakdowns, any boroughs where the students scored higher?
You have borough
We'll be
breakdowns?
getting the reporters more detailed data, so we'll be feeding that out.
Yes, sir.
One of the complaints...
First, the message didn't last you very long, okay?
My apologies. Matt Ganesh, Newtown Dynasty. So a number of parents that have protested, I'm sure you've heard, were complaining that they feel that these test scores are not a good measure or not a good tool for evaluating what ought to be done with schools and with individual students. Now, you've said that you're not going to use these numbers from the new test to make those evaluation decisions for this year. They won't start until next year. At the same time, in your press release, it says that experts agree it takes 3 to 5 years for these test results to actually see substantial effects on students.
Okay, we're certainly going to use the test to find out what kids know and what kids don't. Otherwise, there'd be no point in using the test. What you can't do is use these tests compared to last year's tests to see whether the students have advanced or not. The only ways we know how to use this year's test to see if they've advanced is to compare them to the rest of the state that has taken the same test and look and see whether that gap has increased or decreased. And what it does show is our kids are catching up to the state. There's no ways to tell for the state kids or the city kids compared to last year because they're just two totally different tests. And when we say we're not going to use them, we're not going to judge, balance, take a teacher and say your scores went down because the scores didn't go down. There's no ways of knowing whether the scores went down. They're just two totally separate things that you can't compare. Where we do think there's a legitimate comparison is versus the state. And our teachers deserve a lot of credit. Maybe not everyone for every kid, but they certainly have taken us in the right direction on the one comparison we can make historically. Yes, sir. You want to start? Just it can't. Isn't that hard, Henry? It really isn't.
Henry Goldman, Bloomberg. Does the challenge of meeting more rigorous standards change your attitude at all about having universal pre-K in our schools?
Well, universal pre-K, it's somewhat controversial. I think on balance, it shows that it is valuable. There are some questions about Head Start, whether or not the effects are long-term, but that has nothing to do with this. We're talking about grade 3 to 8. And getting more prepared, having more support in your home, having a better preschool education, all of that's got to be valuable, but there's no ways to use these tests to tell anything.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, again, just from a historical point of view, we have added more pre-K seats. And so under the mayor's leadership, we've expanded the number of full-day pre-K seats. And this year, if you remember from both press conferences and announcements, we added an additional $20 million to our budget for 4,000 new full-day pre-K seats throughout the city, and we targeted underserved areas as well. So as the mayor indicated, based on research, the research shows mixed things, but universal pre-K is important, full-day pre-K is extremely important, and that's what we've done.
Okay, yes, miss.
In the beginning of your administration,
I think we're just going to stop. Can we, one more time, it would just be useful to everybody to know who you represent. Who pays, what name's on your paycheck or whatever. I know it's hard, but we've had 4 in a row that have been unable to do. The first young lady did, in all fairness, 3 in a row, yes.
I'm sorry, Lindsay Christ from New York One.
Great.
In the beginning of your administration, there was a big push to end social promotion. As of now, as of this year,
about 10% of students went to summer school, and about 37% of 8th graders got one, so should have gone to summer school under the no social promotion policy. Going forward, do you think that everybody who gets a 1 should go to summer school, even if it's 37%?
If I had my druthers, given the needs of society, this model that says you only go to school for X number of months and have a long vacation, which was designed back in the days when kids went back to the farm to work in the fields, that model is just inadequate in this day and age. Kids should be going to school fundamentally all year long, and there are plenty of countries around the world that have gone to that model. There's just the amount of knowledge you're going to need to compete in the future keeps going up. And the complexity of it, it's not learning processes anymore, it's learning how to think, which is much more difficult to teach. Yes, Miss?
Ms. Gonzalez, Telemundo. Hispanic students and English language learners didn't do as well. Historically, there aren't enough resources, parents tell me, for the English language learners. Will there be a great deal more resources to make sure these kids do as well, since the standards have gotten so much higher?
Well, Dennis, Shale, you want to address it? One of it's a language issue, and one is it's teaching the subject matter, and that makes it much more complex for an English language learner.
Yeah, well, two things. One of the striking things in the data is that most of our English language learners test out of being English language learners in about 3 years. They learn the language, and they become former Ls. And those students are actually overperforming the city and state averages. So what that says is our immigrant kids are actually excelling. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have to invest more deeply in our recent immigrants and long-term English language learners. And we announced earlier this year that we're opening 50 new bilingual and dual language programs around the city. We'll be doing that again the following year. We've invested another $4 million in professional development and supports to strengthen best practices for English language learners. But we're also very proud of the students as they master English, how well they do as they go on in their academic careers.
I mean, I can tell you, maybe it's a lot easier, I suppose, at a younger age, but learning a foreign language is really difficult. And if you have the guts to do it and the intellectual drive to do it, maybe that carries over, and maybe that's what you do see when these kids do learn to speak English much more proficiently, that in every other subject they study it gets better. Yes, sir.
Going in with the New York Post, so about a third of kids scored in the lowest rung on the test. Moving forward, do you anticipate holding more of them back a grade to help them catch up before you promote them?
Well, yes, by the new standard, but that doesn't mean that there's any difference in the percentage of the kids that are not competing. We do know that everybody's got to move up a lot. Shale, you want to ask?
So we talked about this a lot in the spring when we announced how we were going to do the promotional policy this year, and we said we don't think that there's a greater number of kids that are struggling so much that they need to be in summer school and need to be held back a grade. So we took the bottom 10% based on the raw score, which is very similar to what we've seen in the past several years. When you look at this exam, this is not about remediation. This is about raising the bar and saying this is a new goal to strive for. And so as we look to years ahead, we are going to be continuing to look for the kids that are in that bottom tier, which may not be all of the level 1 students, because many of those level 1 students may actually be prepared enough to move on, and they will become level 2s and level 3s in subsequent years. I think the message to kids here is that if you've fallen from being a level 3 or a level 2 down to a level 1, you've got time. This is not something that you have to fix in 1 year. This is not something you have to solve immediately. It's a signal that you're not on track yet for college readiness, and you need to work hard to get there.
Another ways to look at it is if all kids move up, but you also raise the cutoff point arbitrarily for some decision, whether you want to see who gets an apple in the class or whatever the case may be, the kids who have made a lot of the progress and moved up one level all of a sudden aren't going to be quite up to that level because you're moving the bar up. But the kids have moved up. You're just defining this concept of proficiency or levels is a totally arbitrary one for a variety of other reasons. But everybody could move up, and really, even at the bottom, improve more and still not change how many is in each group if you move the proficiency, the levels up themselves. Yes?
WOR Radio 24/7 News. This may be my lack of understanding, but I just want to clarify. Why is it the change of the tests which will make a difference in getting children to graduate and then get the skills they need?
It's not a change in the test. It's a change in what's taught and what the expectation is. The test simply tries to measure whether or not the curriculum that you are teaching is being learned. And so if you raise the curriculum, you would obviously have you'd raise the test, and then you'd get different results. So that's really what has happened here is Merryl and John had the guts to make the curriculum much harder. And then we come down to the parent who says, well, how much does my kid have to learn? And that really is a sad question, because I think what it says is the parent doesn't understand. There's never going to be enough to learn. You are always going to have to be learning more. Yes, sir.
Art McFarland, WABC TV, Mr. Mayor, and everyone else. You're investing a lot of money in teacher development. What are the most important things that teachers and families need to know about new ways to teach kids so that they can measure up to these new standards?
Well, number one, I think if you take a look, it's a very good question. If you take a look at us versus the state, the teachers apparently know what they're doing, at least relative to teachers in the suburbs and upstate. I'm not trying to disparage what teachers outside of New York City are doing. They may have known it already. We don't know whether their kids in the rest of the state could have been going up dramatically, and we just went up dramatically plus to catch up to them. It is complex. If you look at the questions that we ask, there are a lot of adults that can't answer those questions and sit back and say, if you went back to school, how would you do in the 8th grade and 8th grade algebra? I mean, I was minored in mathematics, and I have to stop and think for a second to do some of these things because I've been away from it for so long. So it's really difficult for a parent to be able to help their kid. It gets more difficult as the child gets more advanced or takes more difficult courses. But there are some things that are common. Parents have to make sure their kids go to school with a meal in their stomach and a good night's sleep and have done the homework, and make sure the kids understand the parents expect them to do well in school, that to some extent their future's in their hands, but it's still parents' responsibility. And those things don't change. Parents can find out how well is the key question you have to ask the teacher is my child alert, trying, doing his or her best, and is there anything I can do at home to help? I think it's probably fair to say a lot of parents can't help with 8th grade algebra. And that's just going to be the real world. Our kids are going to learn more complex things than you and I ever learned in school. That's just the real world. And trying to get
just the critical thinking piece. How do you teach
it is very.
Teach that?
I would argue that you have put your hands on the real challenge for society. That going from the agricultural world to the industrial world is very different than going from the industrial world to the knowledge world, and it's going to be one of the great challenges. Some kids learn it, but we've got to find out ways to teach all the kids, and that's going to be a real challenge. Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. Sure.
So for anyone who's interested in the answer to that question, we're going to be touring a training tomorrow of our teachers here in New York City that are preparing for this, and we've been working over the past 3 years to train teachers, and we began with asking teachers 2 years ago to develop model curriculum units, to plan out a unit that actually does encourage critical thinking and gets kids to use their minds much more. So instead of standing in front of the room, that means getting kids to work in teams and figure out how to solve problems together. Instead of giving kids multiple choice homework or giving kids 1 or 2 sentences to write at night, actually asking kids to look at 2 different books or 2 different essays and try and understand both of those authors' perspectives, and then develop your own perspective and take the evidence that you're finding in what you read and write about it and speak about it. And that means that the things that we do during the day in our classroom have to shift. And we've seen that begin to shift. Many of you have been with us in those classrooms as you've seen kids and teachers really struggling to figure out how to do this well, and it is going to take time. This is not something in Massachusetts where they're now performing at the international level that the mayor mentioned. They're competing with Singapore and Shanghai. They're the only state that's doing that. They started this work 20 years ago. So this is going to take time for us to do that work, but teachers are excited about it and they're actually doing it.
I think another answer to your question is maybe it's the teachers that have the most difficult challenge as we raise the standards. Certainly if they can't do it, the students can't do it, but doing it and teaching something is very much more complex than just doing it. And I, for one, think that on balance our teachers have done a spectacular job. When you look at these numbers, for us to catch up to the state just couldn't happen, and yet it has happened. And somebody called our teachers a bunch of truck drivers. I don't think that's quite fair. I think our teachers really have stepped up to the plate here. And when you talk to them, most of them really are enthusiastic about the great challenge. It's a challenge to. I flew to someplace to give a speech for somebody on a bunch of schools, and these happen to be charter schools. And you talk to the teachers and just the enthusiasm of how they take great pride in what they are able to do. Yes, in the back, Miss.
Hi, Beth Furtick from WNYC Radio. So a question about the level ones. I get it when Shale says that we don't expect you all to progress within 1 year. On the other hand, are you concerned that over a third of the students are at level 1, you've budgeted, it sounds like, an extra $10 million? What will the city do? Does this mean these kids are going to get more learning time? Will there be smaller classes? What is the city going to do? How alarmed are you that
I'm not concerned about this level thing because it's just an arbitrary thing. The kids at the bottom are at the bottom, and we've got to do more for them than we've done before. We've got to do things for kids throughout the entire spectrum. Shale, do you want to just talk about that particular group?
Sure. So the additional money is on top of what is already built into our school funding formulas that puts more resources at the school if you have more level ones. And so what schools do with that money is they actually think about what is the right intervention for that child. Sometimes that means pulling them out into a small reading group to practice their reading. Sometimes it means having them part of an extended day program. Sometimes it means having 2 teachers in the classroom so that there's someone who can sit with students and help them as their other classmates are working ahead. So there's not going to be one correct solution for this. What we know is that the way that our most struggling students succeed is when we challenge them, when we ask them to do more cognitively challenging work, and when we give them the right scaffolding and support. And so, again, another ad for coming tomorrow, that's what our teachers have been working on for these past 2.5 years, is trying to figure out how do we build in supports at different levels. We've had a massive effort to integrate our most struggling special ed students into the general ed curriculum. Many of the kids in that level 1 category are kids with learning disabilities, and they have previously been segregated and excluded. And the expectations have not been that they're going to meet the state standards. The expectations were that they were going to get some other kind of diploma. And we know that's been a dead end for many kids, and we know that many of those kids can achieve when they're asked to rise to the challenge.
We'll take a couple more on topic, Rich.
Rich Lamb, WCBS 880. Has anybody up here looked at the test, found that a question stopped you cold, and/or said, "Wow, that's a challenging question"?
Miss, you had a question? Did you? Yes.
Lisa Fleischer with the Wall Street Journal. I actually have a question for Commissioner King. I wanted to know if you thought that it was appropriate for the city to be looking at the gap between the city and the state numbers in percentage points like they showed on this particular chart here, or given that all the scores have dropped versus, like a percentage drop. In addition, if you could talk a little bit about the city's closing that gap with the state compared with the other districts. What about New York City did they do that other districts weren't doing?
Well, as the mayor described, it's very challenging to make a year-to-year comparison around the proficiency rates. It's one of the reasons why we've emphasized that these scores represent a new baseline. I think in the weeks ahead, there'll be lots of opportunity for analysis of how districts compare to each other, how districts compare to the state. But the thing I would emphasize is that, as I said earlier, New York City made a commitment very early on to the Common Core standards, made a commitment to providing professional development, to beginning to build materials to support teachers around implementation, and I think that work will bear fruit over time. It is challenging to evaluate this year's results against last year's. One way to look at that is the gap between the city and the state. Another is to look at how subgroups have performed across the state. Another is to look at student scaled scores from last year against their scaled scores from this year. And there'll be time for that. Today, I think the emphasis is on the importance of raising the bar and setting our expectations at the level of college and career readiness.
Yes, sir.
Jeff Becker with Gotham Schools. Correct me if I'm looking at this the wrong way. The achievement gap, or the percentage drop for student subgroups fell just under 30% for Asian students, just under, in the 30% and a 30% for whites. But then it was closer to 55 to 60%.
Yeah, but
for
that's
minorities.
because if you take a look at it, if this is where you want to get to be in this category, and you take kids who are down here and you really work hard with them and they get up here, they're probably going to be at the bottom of that category. So if you move it up here, you would expect them to drop. When we compare those kids to the rest of the state, where once again it's the same apples to apples, that's not the case. That they really have made some progress. When we say the racial gap, if you will, has closed, yes, the number of kids here have moved up into here. But a lot of them were still at the bottom of that group because that's where they came from. So you would expect that. What they've got to do is move up more, and then you would not see that. But that's a mathematical formula.
The drops in subgroups for
compared to the state, we did better. I think in every single category, if I remember, go back.
to last year, and just
It is because of where, if you're in the bottom of the old group, and the base is moved up, more at the bottom will fall out of it. Nobody at the top is going to fall out of it. And a lot of these kids came from not being in the group. We've been working hard for so many years to move them up. And yes, they had made that. Some kid will say, well, it's not fair. Well, it's not fairness. This is just different ways to measure it. We'll get a couple more questions. People haven't had a question. Yes, sir.
Steve Brooks, New England. Over the years, it's always been are you being too optimistic in thinking that a kid in the grade schools can go, normally we try to get them to high school. Now you're trying to skip another level and get them ready for college when they're in grade school, in fifth grade.
Well, I think the answer is you want to make the high school diploma be more rigorous so that when they get to their high school diploma, and even if that's where they stop their education, they'll have a lot more skills and abilities to compete. I don't think that's a good way to look at it. We're certainly expecting more of everybody at every level. And the percentage that may go on to college may not change. Kids can make decisions. They can go to what I call the vocational schools and you call career technical education schools. And that may be the way that the kid wants to go. But I don't think it's fair to say that we're jumping them, we're asking then too much of them.
It will create more dropouts? No.
We don't think so. We're going to make sure, we're going to do our damnedest to make sure that you don't. But let me point out, if you drop out and you haven't learned, if you stay in and you don't learn anything, it's better than not dropping out, I suppose, but only marginally. Yes, sir. No. Okay, we're just never going to get this done. I know. Okay, good, because I just want to...
So with the dropout rate, just to be very clear, the mayor has reduced the dropout rate by 50% since he became mayor. And it's down to an all-time low of 11%. Graduation rate in 4 years is 64 and change. What the mayor always talks about is our 5- and 6-year graduation rate has gone up as well. So we're keeping them in school, we're giving them more choices and options, and that's extremely important.
I think that's well said. Yes, Les, we'll take 2 more questions on topic, and then yes, go ahead. And you next one, sir.
You said that the students that are in the highest test scores will still be able to get in. A lot of the middle schools, even the high schools, only accept students that are 3s and 4s. Is there any relaxing of this through the new test scores?
Yeah, so they're going to look at kids in rank order, and so there'll be fewer students who are scoring at level 4, and so they'll look at the level 3s, and if they've admitted all their level 3s, then they'll look at level 2s. So they're going to adjust it given the change.
But your point's well taken. When you pick these arbitrary groupings, you create a whole category of problems that comes with them of just being 1 point over or 1 point under may not mean anything in the real world, but in terms of your getting into someplace, it may mean a lot. Last question on topic, and then we'll try anything else. Yes?
James Ford from WPIX Channel 11. You've made this commitment to the Common Core, and now you see the results. How concerned are you or Chancellor Walcott that a new administration will not stay this course that you feel...
You know, that's, in the end, that's your job. That is the job of the Fourth Estate, to keep the public current on what schools are doing, and I think there'd be an overwhelming demand from the public to stay the course and keep making the standards higher. The rest of the country is going to do it. The state, you've got Merrill, Tisch, and John King. They're going to be around. They'll do it. And you've got to put pressure on. We'll take any other topics. Anybody? Another topic? Okay, yes. But then we just have to, because we're going to run out of time.
If I could ask you, a lot of the follow-up on the question about future administrations, if it will be forced or change of course here fairly soon. Bill Thompson, for example, who you support, and a lot of the other candidates say that we just test way too much in the city.
So we do what?
That this administration is excessively testing, so they say. Do you agree with that?
Let me just tell you, I'm the mayor. I don't know how you'd measure anybody if you didn't test. How do you know what you're doing without testing? You get tested every day. People look at your stories. Are they good or bad? Do people want to read them, listen to them, or watch them? We all use testing every day. Unless you test, you don't know what the student is learning, and you don't know how to help the student. The student, the group that would be the most badly hurt if you stop testing would be the students, because then the teachers are just flying blind. You have to test. Dennis agrees with me, okay? Come on, because we just want to take other topics. Yes. We identify who you are. I couldn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
When if the students are going to experience any change in the education in a way,
We've been introducing this curriculum for the last 2 years, as John King described it. Huh?
Based on these last results, are they going to be implemented after September?
Does anybody understand what you said? I cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
So we will be continuing the process that we started over the past 2.5 years, which means that there'll be more curriculum resources in schools. We've trained 15,000 teachers this summer. We have over 1 million books arriving this summer and into the fall in our schools to help teachers with additional resources. And we're going to continue that training through the whole year. And then we'll continue it the following year and the year after, because this is not something that'll be changed with just 1 or 2 or 3 years of work. This is a generational challenge, and we have a long way to go to meet this challenge.
Okay, if there's no other questions, yes. On topic? No. We just cannot keep going with this. There's got to be other things going on in the city, and I just want to...
One press conference or all the questions.
Okay, fine. We'll take your question, and then that's it, okay?
For the bigger...
Henry Dudley, everybody's walking out. That's what I'm trying to stop here. It's not fair to anybody else. Okay. Yes, good.
Perhaps you guys can answer this. One of the bigger topics this year has been teacher evaluations, and everyone keeps talking about how you can't compare this year to last. Perhaps you can explain a little bit for people how you can actually conduct calculate the teacher evaluations between 2 years and the school progress reports.
Okay, so teacher evaluations for this past year that we were just talking about the test results from are still in the old system. Do not use measures of student learning. So for this coming year, in next April, when kids take those tests, those will become part of the evaluation. If you're curious about how it's happening in other parts of the state, what they've done is they've actually looked using a growth percentile method, which is very similar to what we have on our progress report. and they look at where do kids start on last year's test, all the kids that scored exactly at the same scale score level, how did they do a year later on the new test? And by norming in that way and comparing kids to each other, you can get a sense of the kind of growth that's happening. And the commissioner has said that districts that are going through that for this year have to use that judiciously and make sure that they're integrating that as one of multiple measures. But for New York City, that isn't a challenge that we face. Teachers will not be evaluated based on last year's tests. That will come the following year.
All right, let me just summarize. We had enough questions for the day. The bottom line, okay, yes, go ahead. One question and that's it.
Yesterday, Anthony Weiner said that he expects you to vote for him.
I go back to education.
Because his argument was that, because he argues he's not pandering to the municipal unions and therefore he will win your vote. Do you think that's...
I have said that I know who I'm going to vote for. I have declined to share who I'm going to vote for with anybody. I don't know whether I'll keep that through the election, but you can rest assured I will show up. I will vote for one of the candidates, except that this election, I am not a registered Democrat. A good point. Maybe he or anybody else should have thought about that. Okay? The question at best would be if I could vote in this primary, and I have argued that these primaries should be open to everybody because a very small percentage of the public is going to pick the next mayor. It is not very democratic with a small d. Yes, what you're off topic?
You actually said if you were a Democrat, you would.
Well, okay, I'm glad you clarified that.
You actually went so far as to say that you were planning to vote for him in the general election. Do you think that was just like...
I don't know who's going to be in the general election. We'll wait to see. It's much too premature to make an assumption on that. You can go back to the same question?
No, different one.
We're just losing it. People are leaving, and that's what I'm trying to, I'm sorry. It's the fourth estate that's walking out and ending this, not me. Go ahead.
Kirsten Gillibrand sends around an email this morning raising money for Mark Pryor, who you have opposed through Mayors Against Legal Guns because she's worried that his opponent is too anti-women. A, are you concerned that Cotton will win? And B, do you take her email as an implicit criticism of Mayors Against Legal Guns' strategy?
I haven't talked to her. I don't know what her incentive is. We will support candidates, particularly Democrats, because that's what matters in the Senate, who will stop the carnage. 12,000 Americans are going to get killed with illegal guns this year. 19,000 are going to commit suicide. I care about those people. And in terms of the politics and other issues, you're never going to agree with anybody on everything. But the most important thing to me is to save those lives. And if Senator Pryor votes the right way, I'll be the first one to support him. Thank you.